Some secrets of our world have been buried for thousands of years, hidden in ruins, tombs, and forgotten temples. Tonight, we explore 22 hidden mysteries, from painted coffins and golden treasures to colossal statues and lost temples. Each one whispers stories lost to time, waiting for curious eyes. Before we begin, where are you watching from? And what time is it there? And if you're ready to uncover the untold, make sure to subscribe. There's a world of forgotten secrets ahead. The giant hand of the Atacama Desert. Imagine this. You are walking across an endless sea of sand. The world around you feels still. No sound of birds, no rushing water, no rustling trees, only the desert, only silence. This is the Atacama Desert in northern Chile, the driest desert on Earth. A place where in some valleys, rain has not fallen for hundreds of years. A place so dry that scientists come here to test machines they send to Mars. The desert feels almost alien, as though you've stepped off the Earth and onto another world. Now picture yourself standing in the heart of this desert, under a burning blue sky. And then, out of nowhere you see it. A giant stone hand, rising from the sand. Its fingers stretching to the heavens. Its palm pressed upward, as if frozen mid-gesture. It is enormous, more than 10 meters tall, lonely, silent, and yet, alive with meaning. This is the Mano del Desierto, the Hand of the Desert. It was created in 1992 by sculptor Mario Irarrázaval. But when you first see it, you don't think of dates, or artists, or construction. You think of giants. You think of myths. You think of something ancient, reaching out of the earth itself. The hand is made of concrete and iron, yet it feels older than stone. Its rough surface looks weathered, as if carved long ago by winds and sands. It looks like it has always been here, waiting. But waiting for what? Some say the hand represents human vulnerability. Others see it as a cry for help, a voice rising out of silence. Others still see it as a tribute to those who struggle, to pain, loneliness, and the fragile human spirit. But the desert transforms its meaning. Standing here surrounded by nothingness, the hand feels like something else entirely. It feels like a marker, a symbol from another time, a message written in silence. Let's pause here and imagine what it feels like to stand beside it. The air is dry, almost sharp in your lungs. The ground crunches beneath your feet. The hand towers above, its shadow stretching long across the sand. You place your own hand against its base, and you feel impossibly small. It's almost as if a giant, buried beneath the earth, is slowly awakening. Only its hand has broken through the surface, reaching, searching. Do you feel fear, or do you feel comfort, knowing that even in this vast emptiness, something is reaching upward with you? And at night, the feeling changes again. The desert sky is one of the clearest in the world. Stars burn brighter here than almost anywhere else. Astronomers build massive observatories nearby because the heavens reveal themselves in ways they cannot elsewhere. Now picture the hand at night, its silhouette black against a silver sky, the Milky Way stretching overhead like a river of light. It no longer feels like a monument. It feels like a companion, as if the earth itself is reaching into the stars, trying to touch the infinite. But mystery grows in silence. And though we know who made it, people cannot help but weave their own stories. Some whisper that the hand belongs to forgotten giants who once roamed the desert. Others compare it to ancient geoglyphs etched into the Atacama sands by civilizations long gone. Perhaps, they say, the hand is a modern echo of something much older, a memory reborn in stone. And isn't it strange how often hands appear in myth? Hands painted on cave walls, thousands of years old. Hands raised in blessing, carved into temple stones. Hands grasping, reaching, protecting, warning. The human hand has always been more than flesh and bone. It has always been a symbol of connection, between people, between earth and sky, between life and something greater. So when you see this hand in the silence of the Atacama, you wonder, is this sculpture simply modern art, or is it part of that unbroken chain, another hand, reaching across thousands of years of human memory? Think of the travelers who visit. Many come with excitement, wanting photographs of something unusual, but often, when they arrive, they fall into silence. The desert demands it, and the hand, well, the hand feels different up close. Some stand in awe, some laugh nervously, some even feel unsettled, as though they've stumbled upon something they shouldn't. But almost all leave changed, because when you drive away, the hand lingers in your mind. You can still see its fingers in your memory, pressing against the empty blue sky. It feels less like a monument, and more like an experience, a feeling you carry with you long after the desert disappears behind you. And maybe that is why it matters. Not because it is ancient, not because it is mysterious in the way of forgotten tombs or lost temples, but because, in its simplicity, it awakens mystery within us. It reminds us that art is not only about beauty, it is about presence, it is about silence. It is about standing in the driest desert on earth, looking up at a giant hand, and wondering, what does it mean to reach? What does it mean to endure? What does it mean to leave a mark in the middle of nothing? So tonight, as you drift into sleep, think of that desert, the endless horizon, the quiet, the stars spilling across the sky, and the giant hand, reaching upward, eternal. Lonely, yet not alone. Silent, yet speaking louder than words ever could. And maybe, in your dreams, you'll walk there again. The desert stretching endlessly around you. Your footsteps soft, your heart calm. And that hand, always reaching, always waiting. The forgotten stone heads of Guatemala. Imagine, you are deep in the jungle, the air is heavy, warm, and thick with the scent of wet leaves. Insects buzz, birds cry somewhere in the canopy above. The green world presses close on all sides. And then, in the middle of this wilderness, you see a face. Not a living face, not an animal or a human walking past, but a face carved into stone. A giant head, staring out from the undergrowth, its eyes wide, its lips firm, its expression unreadable. This is the mystery of the stone heads of Guatemala. For decades, rumors have drifted about enormous faces carved from stone, hidden in the forests and hills of Central America. One such head came to light in the 1950s, when a photograph surfaced, a colossal face, smooth and weathered, unlike the features of the Maya or other known cultures of the region. Its nose was high, its lips narrow, its features strange, and then, the head disappeared. The photograph was passed around, whispered about. Some say the head was destroyed, riddled with bullets during Guatemala's civil unrest. Others claim it still stands, hidden somewhere in the jungle, waiting to be rediscovered. But the mystery remains: who carved it? Why? And why does it look so different from the ancient faces we know? Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine stepping through that jungle. Branches brush your arms. The ground is soft, damp, uneven beneath your boots. And then, through the ferns, the head emerges. It is taller than you. Its stone is pale against the green world around it. Its eyes seem to look past you, through you, into something far away. You reach out a hand, touch the surface. It is warm from the sun, but the grooves of its carved face are cool, deep, old. And in that moment, the air seems to hold its breath. The forest grows quiet, as if listening. Scholars have debated this head for years. Some dismiss it as a hoax. They say the photo was staged, or that the head was a modern sculpture mistaken for something ancient. Others argue that it could be real, a surviving fragment of a culture lost to time, perhaps even predating the Maya. There are legends across Central America of older civilizations, people who came before, builders of stone, makers of strange forms, but so little evidence remains, so few voices whisper from that time, and so the stone head lives in shadow. Neither fully real, nor fully gone. Yet mystery has a way of shaping itself to our imagination. Some look at the photograph and claim the head's features are not indigenous at all, that they look European, or even otherworldly. And so the stories grow. Was this proof of ancient contact, a civilization unknown, or just the forest playing tricks with our hopes for mystery? But think for a moment about the power of stone. It does not move, it does not breathe, and yet it endures. Civilizations rise and fall. Wars burn through centuries, forests grow, rivers change their course, and still, stone remains. Perhaps this is why the stone head, whether real or imagined, captures us so strongly, because if it did exist, if it truly stood in that Guatemalan jungle, then it is a message carved into time itself, a silent face, watching across centuries, long after the hands that shaped it have turned to dust. Let's slow down, and imagine this as a dream. You are walking at dusk, the sky above is dimming, the jungle turning darker by the minute, and then you see it, the faint outline of a face. You stop, your heart quiet, the stone eyes meet yours, the jungle hum fades, and you realize, you are not alone. The face has been waiting. For years, for decades, for centuries, not waiting for anyone in particular, just waiting for someone to see it again, and that someone is you. Now picture the morning after. Sunlight filters through the leaves, mist rises from the ground, the head glows faintly in the new light, its stone damp, its features softened, it does not speak, it does not move, and yet you feel as if you have received a message, not in words, but in presence, a reminder that history is deeper than we know, that the earth holds more faces than the ones we see each day. Faces carved, forgotten, hidden, and perhaps waiting still. The photograph remains, faded, disputed, endlessly debated, but the mystery it carries has not faded, because in truth, it doesn't matter whether the head was real, or whether it is still standing in some remote jungle clearing. What matters is what it awakens in us. It makes us wonder what else lies buried, swallowed by time, erased by conflict, hidden by nature. It makes us imagine walking deeper, further, into the green silence, until once again, a face emerges, stone, silent, eternal. So tonight, as you listen, let the stone head rest in your mind. A face without a name, a presence without a voice, a mystery without an answer. Let it drift with you into sleep. The jungle around you, warm and quiet. The desert kites of the Middle East. In the dry plateaus and barren stretches of the Middle East, the ground hides patterns you cannot see while standing on it. Walk across the sand and rock, and nothing looks unusual. Just open land under a vast sky. But climb higher. Or better yet, look from above, and a strange sight begins to appear. Lines stretch across the desert floor. They are long, straight, and too deliberate to be natural. Some extend for hundreds of meters, even kilometers. They converge in wide V-shaped funnels that seem to lead toward a central point, sometimes a pit, sometimes an enclosure. From the air they resemble enormous kites laid flat against the earth, and so archaeologists call them desert kites. The first pilots to fly over these regions in the early 20th century were shocked to see them. The kites were invisible at ground level, but unmistakable from above. Thousands of them appeared across Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and beyond. They formed a hidden map of ancient activity that no one had noticed for millennia. But what were they for? The answer lies in both their scale and their shape. These were not artworks, and they were not random. They were traps. Imagine herds of gazelles or wild animals moving across the desert. Hunters working together would drive the animals into the wide openings of the kite. The stone walls, low but long, would guide the animals inward. The funnel narrowed, forcing the panicked creatures into smaller and smaller space until they were trapped. At the end of the funnel, hunters could kill them or drive them into pits where they could not escape. These desert kites were among the first large-scale hunting structures in human history. Some date back 8,000 years to the Neolithic period. They show us that even in those early times, people were capable of organizing massive cooperative hunts, building stone structures across wide landscapes, and thinking on a scale far beyond the needs of a single family or village. But the story is not that simple, because the sheer number of these kites raises a question. There are thousands scattered across the Middle East. If each one was used for hunting, how many animals were driven into them over the centuries? Could entire populations of wild gazelle and antelope have been wiped out by this method of mass hunting? Some researchers believe that's exactly what happened, that the kites were too effective, that the people of the desert hunted on such a large scale that they drove species into decline, maybe even extinction in some regions. The structures that once provided abundance eventually became monuments to scarcity. Now picture the silence of those deserts today. The stone walls still trace their patterns across the ground. The pits remain. From the air they are still clear and sharp, but the animals are gone. The gazelles that once ran across the plains no longer move in great herds here. The traps stand empty, their purpose long past. If you were to walk among them now, you would see only low piles of stones, barely higher than your knees. They seem insignificant, but seen from above, the vision changes. You realize you are standing inside an ancient machine built for hunting, one so large it could only be understood from the sky. There's another mystery too. The cooperation these kites required is remarkable. Imagine dozens, perhaps hundreds of people working together to build walls stretching hundreds of meters. Imagine the planning it took to drive animals across such distances, coordinating shouts, fires, or movements to push the herd exactly where it needed to go. This was not casual hunting. This was organized, communal effort. It suggests leadership, strategy, and shared labor on a scale that feels almost modern. And yet, we don't know who exactly built the earliest ones. The desert does not preserve names or voices. It leaves only stones arranged in patterns, and the empty echo of questions. For archaeologists, desert kites are a paradox. They are simple in design, but immense in impact. They show intelligence and cooperation, but also destruction. They speak of abundance and of loss. Some even wonder whether their visibility from the air, so striking to modern eyes, hints at a different perspective. Did those ancient builders ever see them from high ground and understand the full shape? Or did they work piece by piece, never realizing they were leaving behind vast geometric designs across the desert? We may never know. So tonight, as you think of the desert kites, picture yourself standing in one. The sun overhead is relentless. The horizon wavers in the heat. Around you, low stone walls stretch out in both directions, narrowing toward some unseen end. It feels endless, but purposeful. You follow the line with your eyes, and you realize you are walking inside the plans of people long gone, people who shaped the land itself into a tool and left behind a puzzle we are only beginning to understand. Silent now, empty now, but still there. A memory carved into the desert. The face towers of Bayon Temple. In the heart of Cambodia, deep in the ancient city of Angkor Thom, rises a temple unlike any other in the world. At first glance, it seems like a mountain of stone, weathered and crumbling with age. But step closer, and the secret of Bayon begins to reveal itself. Carved into its towers are faces. Not one, not 10, but over 200 massive stone faces, gazing out in every direction. Some smile faintly, Others remain serene and unreadable. Each one watches the jungle and the people who pass below. Together they form one of the most haunting and unforgettable sights in archaeology, the face towers of Bayon Temple. The Bayon Temple was built in the late 12th or early 13th century, during the reign of King Jayavarman VII. It was the centerpiece of Angkor Thom, the grand capital of the Khmer Empire. Unlike other temples in Angkor, which often honored Hindu deities, Bayon stood as a Buddhist monument, but its faces complicate the story. Some scholars say they are the likeness of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva of compassion, gazing down with mercy in all directions. Others argue the faces bear a striking resemblance to Jayavarman himself, suggesting the king left his own image multiplied across the temple to symbolize his divine authority. Whatever the truth, the result is astonishing. A temple that is both religious and political, sacred and personal, filled with a presence that feels alive even centuries later. Imagine yourself walking through Bayon. The morning mist still lingers in the jungle. Birds cry in the distance, and the air is heavy with the scent of earth and stone warmed by the sun. You pass through narrow corridors, their walls lined with intricate carvings showing battles, processions, and everyday life of the Khmer people. The stories stretch endlessly in stone, warriors marching, kings seated in state, markets bustling with activity. And then you emerge into the open courtyard. Above you rise the towers, and everywhere you look, faces watch. They are massive, serene, and strangely human. Their lips curve in faint smiles, sometimes called the Mona Lisa of Southeast Asia. Their eyes are half closed, as if they are in eternal meditation, or perhaps in a knowing state between kindness and mystery. From one tower to the next, the expressions are similar, yet never identical, as though each face holds a slightly different secret. The effect is overwhelming. You realize you are being seen. Wherever you walk, the faces seem to follow, gazing from above, not in judgment, but in calm acceptance. Some visitors describe the experience as peaceful, others as unsettling. In the silence of the temple, you feel part of something vast, a dialogue between the living and the stone, between past and present. But mysteries remain. How were these faces carved with such precision, high on towers that stretch up to 45 meters into the sky? How many workers, artisans, and architects labored to complete them? And why so many faces, 200 or more, covering every side, every angle? Some theories suggest they represent the all-seeing compassion of the Buddha. Others believe they are the omnipresent gaze of a ruler, reminding his subjects that the king's watchful eye was everywhere. Perhaps it was both, the merging of divine and royal power, fused into a vision that would last for centuries. Today, Bayon is partially in ruins. Many towers have collapsed. Some faces are eroded, their features softened by rain and time. But enough remain to preserve the temple's atmosphere. And if you stand quietly in the central courtyard, surrounded by faces at every turn, you can feel the weight of the centuries slip away. You begin to sense what the people of the Khmer Empire must have felt: awe, reverence, and perhaps a little fear. The temple does not just display its faces, it absorbs you into them. As the light changes through the day, so do the expressions. In the morning, shadows soften their features, making them gentle and welcoming. At noon, the harsh sun sharpens every line, giving them a stern and powerful presence. By evening, the fading light cloaks them in mystery, the smiles half hidden in shadow. It feels as if the temple itself breathes with time. Archaeologists continue to study Bayon, piecing together its history. They uncover clues in inscriptions, in the alignment of towers, in the hidden chambers beneath the temple floor. Yet the deeper meaning of the faces remains elusive. Are they divine? Are they royal? Are they both? Perhaps their power lies in that very uncertainty. They are clear enough to be human, yet distant enough to be timeless. They watch without speaking, inviting every visitor to bring their own interpretation. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine standing before one of these faces. Its lips curve in that slight, eternal smile. Its eyes are fixed somewhere beyond you, as though it sees both you and something far away. The jungle is quiet. The air is still. For a moment you feel part of a world much older than yourself. A world where stone carried the weight of belief, and faces carved in silence could still speak across the ages. The Bayon Temple remains, the faces endure, and the mystery of their meaning continues to watch over us all. The carved rock lions of Al-Ula. In the desert valleys of northwestern Saudi Arabia, where cliffs rise from the earth like frozen waves of stone, there is a place called Al-Ula. Today it is quiet, an oasis surrounded by rock formations that glow gold and red under the sun. But hidden among these stones are carvings of lions, ancient guardians carved into tombs more than 2,000 years ago. The carved rock lions of Al-Ula are not towering statues. They are not grand temples. They are something more subtle. Figures etched into sandstone, their features weathered by centuries of wind and sand. And yet, despite their silence, they speak volumes. Al-Ula was once part of a great crossroads, a place where caravans passed, carrying frankincense, spices, and treasures between Arabia, Mesopotamia, and the Mediterranean. It was here that the ancient kingdoms of Dedon, and later the Nabateans, thrived. The lions carved on tomb facades may have been more than decoration. They were symbols of protection, strength, and guardianship over the dead who rested inside. Imagine walking through the valley thousands of years ago. The desert air is heavy with the smell of camel leather and burning oils from passing traders. The cliffs around you are marked with doorways carved straight into the rock, tombs for nobles and leaders. Above these doorways, lions crouch, their bodies stretched long, their jaws open, their eyes fixed on eternity. To the people of Dedon, the lion was a sacred protector. Its roar carried power, and its image was a warning that the tomb behind it was not to be disturbed. But these lions are more than symbols. Look closely at the carvings, and you notice the skill of the artisans. Some lions are stylized, with geometric shapes, their muscles suggested with simple lines. Others show more detail, paws, teeth, even manes etched carefully into stone. Each one is slightly different, as if carved by different hands, across different times, each leaving their mark on the valley. The sandstone itself tells a story, soft enough to carve, but hard enough to endure centuries. Wind and sand have smoothed the edges, blurring the once sharp features. Today, some lions are just faint outlines, shadows of what they once were. But when the sun hits the cliffs at the right angle, they come alive again, glowing against the rock as if roaring into the desert air. Archaeologists have long debated the meaning of these lions. Were they purely funerary guardians, or did they symbolize something larger, connected to the beliefs of the Dedonite kingdom? Some suggest they may have been tied to solar worship, the lion representing the power of the sun. Others see them as echoes of Mesopotamian influence, where lions often stood as symbols of kingship and divine authority. What is clear is that these carvings were not made for casual decoration. They were placed at thresholds, the entrances to tombs, where the living met the realm of the dead. Passing beneath their gaze must have been a powerful experience. Think of the people who carved them, craftsmen with chisels of bronze or iron, climbing scaffolds in the heat, striking stone again and again under the desert sun. Their work was not just labor, but ritual. Each blow carried weight, turning raw rock into a guardian spirit. The lions they carved were meant to last forever, to guard not only bones and treasures but also the souls of those entombed within. Today, when you stand in Al-Ula and look up at these carvings, you can feel that intention. The silence of the desert amplifies their presence. There are no crowds, no noise, only the whisper of wind through the canyons. The lions watch you, as they have watched every traveler, every wanderer, every curious visitor for over 2 millennia. And yet, so much remains unknown. Who exactly were the people buried in these tombs? What stories were told about the lions? Did mourners once bring offerings to these carved guardians, food, incense, prayers spoken under the stars? Or did the lions serve as warnings, fierce reminders that the dead were not to be disturbed? Unlike Egypt, where hieroglyphs tell us myths and rituals in great detail, Dedon left only fragments, inscriptions, a few carvings, scattered ruins. The lions remain some of the clearest voices from a world otherwise swallowed by time. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. It is dusk in the valley of Al-Ula. The sky is painted with fading pinks and oranges. Shadows stretch across the cliffs. The air cools after the heat of the day. A caravan has just passed, leaving behind the faint sound of bells tied to camels. And there, carved above a tomb entrance, a lion waits. Its eyes seem to catch the last rays of the sun, glowing as the desert darkens. You stand before it in silence. You know nothing of the name of the person inside. You cannot read the ancient inscriptions, but you feel something, the presence of guardianship, of memory, of lives that once mattered. The lion is still doing its work. Even now, Al-Ula is a place of rediscovery. Archaeologists continue to survey the valley, unearthing new tombs, new carvings, and new insights into the Dedonite and Nabatean kingdoms. Each find adds a piece to the puzzle. Yet, with each discovery, more questions arise. Who commissioned these lions? Were they kings, priests, or wealthy merchants? Why did the symbolism fade over time, as later tombs in the region abandoned animal guardians altogether? Perhaps the answers will remain buried, or perhaps they will reveal themselves slowly, like the carvings that emerge from shadow when sunlight hits them just right. The carved rock lions of Al-Ula are a reminder of how humans across time have sought protection, meaning, and permanence. In life, we seek strength. In death, we seek guardianship. The Dedonites carved their guardians into stone, trusting that lions would watch over them in eternity. And here they remain, still watching, still guarding, still whispering across time. The copper fishhooks of Oman. In the rugged coastal lands of Oman, where the mountains meet the sea and the waves crash against rocky shores, there exists a story almost forgotten by time. Beneath the sands and soil of this ancient land, archaeologists have uncovered copper fishhooks, small artifacts that might seem ordinary at first glance, yet they carry whispers from thousands of years ago. These hooks are not just tools, they are windows into the lives of people who lived close to the water, whose survival depended on the ocean and the rivers. They remind us that even the smallest object can tell vast stories of sustenance, ingenuity, and human connection to the natural world. The copper fishhooks of Oman date back over 4,000 years. At first, they might seem unremarkable, simple loops of copper, carefully shaped, their points sharpened to pierce scales, but the craftsmanship is subtle, precise, and telling. Each hook was made by hand, hammered, and shaped from raw copper, a metal that required knowledge, skill, and time to work with. Imagine the artisans who created them. Perhaps they were fishermen or blacksmiths learning their craft. They selected their copper, heating it carefully to bend it without breaking, smoothing rough edges so that it would hold bait and catch fish without snapping. Every hook was a product of patience, thought, and necessity. The discovery of these hooks was not just about fishing. It tells us about trade, resource use, and ancient diets. Copper itself was not abundant everywhere. Its presence in Oman hints at the movement of materials, perhaps even early trade networks along the Arabian Peninsula. The fishermen of Oman were not isolated. They were connected to a wider world of humans seeking metals, food, and survival strategies in a harsh environment. Archaeologists unearthed these hooks carefully, often in coastal settlements buried under centuries of sand. Each excavation revealed fragments of daily life, pottery shards, shells, fish bones, and among them, the copper hooks stood out. Small, functional, yet remarkable, they formed a bridge between past and present, showing how humans adapted to their environment. Close your eyes and imagine a small village along the Omani coast 4,000 years ago. Children play near the water's edge, their bare feet wet with tide, as adults repair nets or prepare simple rafts. Early morning mist rises from the ocean, the scent of salt thick in the air. A fisherman sharpens a small copper hook, bends it carefully, and attaches it to a line. Soon it will glide into the waters, hoping to catch the fish that sustains the village. These hooks were tools of life, not objects of grandeur, yet they carried a quiet sophistication. The curves, the tips, the exact size, all designed to perform with efficiency. And in their design, we see thoughtfulness. Humans who understood the water, the fish, and the delicate balance required to survive. The copper hooks also speak to the passage of time. Many of them were lost, corroded by centuries in soil, their greenish-blue patina marking the slow reaction of copper with earth and water. Yet even in decay, they preserve information about the metallurgy, the fishing techniques, and the people themselves. Interestingly, similar hooks have been found across the Arabian Peninsula, in the Gulf region, and even as far away as the Indus Valley. This points to cultural and technological exchange, a world where ideas traveled along coasts and rivers long before modern transportation existed. The humble copper hook becomes a symbol of connectivity, showing that even in antiquity, humans were deeply aware of and responsive to the broader world. Some may dismiss copper hooks as minor artifacts, but for those who pause and reflect, they are profound. They reveal patience, skill, and adaptation. They show how humans have always observed their environment, learned from it, and developed tools that fit seamlessly into their lives. Each hook also reminds us of routine and ritual. Fishing in ancient Oman was more than catching food. It was a rhythm of life. Casting lines at dawn, listening to the lapping waves, waiting for a tug, handling the catch. These were moments steeped in both necessity and reflection. The hooks were part of this rhythm, silent companions in the lives of countless people long gone. As archaeologists continue to study these hooks, questions emerge. Were certain types reserved for specific fish? Did designs change over centuries? How did metallurgy evolve alongside fishing practices? Every new study adds layers to the story, but the full narrative is still incomplete. The copper fish hooks of Oman are small, yet enduring. They teach us that not all mysteries need to be grand. Some are found in the tools people carried, in the simple acts that allowed them to thrive. They link us to a past that is at once familiar and strange, showing how humans have always sought solutions in the world around them. When you picture these hooks now, consider the lives they touched. Consider the mornings when a hook left the hands of a skilled artisan and entered the water, the dinners that followed, the children who learned from these practices. Think of the desert wind and the salty air, of cliffs and beaches, of the sound of waves across millennia. The copper fish hooks of Oman remain quietly extraordinary. Not as monumental sculptures, not as grand tombs, but as tiny, precise pieces of human ingenuity. They speak softly across time, telling us about survival, skill, and connection. An enduring whisper from the past that reminds us how humans have always interacted with the natural world and with each other. The stone temples of Malta's Tarxian. Nestled on the Mediterranean island of Malta, the Tarxian temples stand as silent witnesses to a civilization that flourished thousands of years ago. Their stone walls, carved with intricate patterns and figures, echo stories of people who lived long before history was written, long before empires rose and fell. These temples are not just structures, they are repositories of mystery, carefully constructed, deliberately designed, and preserved through time, waiting for eyes that look closely. The Tarxian temples date back to around 3000 BCE, part of a series of megalithic sites scattered across Malta. Archaeologists who first explored the site were struck not just by the size of the stones, but by the precision of the carvings. Bulls, spirals, and abstract geometric motifs adorn the walls, hinting at symbolism and practices we can only speculate upon. Each carving suggests meaning, yet its exact purpose remains lost in the mists of time. Imagine the builders, moving massive stones without modern tools, shaping and lifting them with sheer human effort and ingenuity. Their hands etched spirals into limestone, carved representations of animals that held spiritual significance, and aligned walls with precision that might relate to celestial movements. Each stone was placed with care, creating spaces for rituals, gatherings, or ceremonies, though we cannot say for certain. Visitors to Tarxian today can feel the weight of that ancient intention. Walking through the passageways, one senses the rhythm of the past, ceremonies conducted, offerings laid on altars, footsteps of those long gone echoing faintly against the limestone walls. The temples were more than stone, they were hubs of community and belief, centers where the sacred met the mundane, where human hands shaped the world in alignment with their understanding of the cosmos. Excavations at Tarxian have revealed not just stones but fragments of daily life. Pottery shards, animal bones, figurines, and tools. These remnants hint at rituals that might have included animal sacrifice, fertility ceremonies, and the veneration of deities, yet no written record survives to explain their exact meaning. Scholars debate interpretations, but certainty remains elusive. Perhaps that is the most compelling part. The site refuses to be fully understood, leaving us with fragments, traces, and questions. One of the most striking features of Tarxian is the repeated depiction of bulls. Some scholars suggest that bulls were sacred, perhaps representing fertility or divine power. The carvings are meticulous, the forms exaggerated, emphasizing the strength and importance of these animals. Even today, standing before these carvings, one can sense their presence, a reminder that ancient people viewed the world differently, assigning significance to life in ways modern observers can only attempt to imagine. Consider the precision required to build with such massive stones. The walls align, chambers connect in a deliberate arrangement, and spaces are carved to accommodate movement and observation. There is a suggestion that some walls and doorways align with astronomical events, such as solstices and equinoxes, indicating that the builders observed the sky and integrated that knowledge into their sacred spaces. These stone temples were more than monuments, they were instruments, tools to connect people with time, cycles, and the divine. Walking through the site, one might notice smaller carvings, abstract motifs that seem almost playful alongside the solemn depictions of animals. Spirals, circles, and lines dance across walls, inviting interpretation. Were these decorative, symbolic, or practical? Perhaps they served as teaching tools, storytelling devices, or markers for rituals. Each mark is a whisper from a mind long silent, a fragment of intention preserved in limestone. The Tarxian temples were discovered in the late 19th century, buried beneath layers of earth, neglected until archaeologists recognized their significance. Careful excavation revealed a sprawling complex, intricate and precise, with interconnected chambers, altars, and finely carved stones. The site challenges assumptions about prehistoric Europe, a reminder that complex societies with sophisticated art, architecture, and ritual existed far earlier than many might expect. The human presence is palpable in Tarxian. Even without written records, one can sense their routines, priorities, and spiritual concerns. People carried heavy stones, carved delicate figures, and organized communal life around sacred spaces. The stones are a testament to their ingenuity, dedication, and reverence for both their world and the unseen forces they believed governed it. Standing amid these ancient walls, one is struck by continuity. Time may have passed in millennia, but the essence of human curiosity, devotion, and craftsmanship endures. The Tarxian temples invite us to ask questions that cannot be fully answered. How did they move the stones? What did the symbols mean? How were these spaces used in daily life? Each question reminds us that history is not a closed book. It is a puzzle that continues to unfold with every new discovery. The Tarxian temples are not just archaeological sites, They are bridges to the minds and hands of ancient people. They connect us to a world that existed long before modern nations, before writing, before most of the structures we consider monumental today. They are enduring reminders of human creativity, spirituality, and the desire to leave a mark on the world. In imagining the builders, the priests, the community that lived in harmony with their sacred spaces, one begins to see the profound patience, effort, and thought that shaped every stone. The site does not shout for attention, it does not demand interpretation, it waits. Silent, strong, enduring, a testimony to human dedication across millennia. The stone temples of Malta's Tarxian remain quietly remarkable. They are not only structures of stone, but vessels of human intention, art, and ritual. Each carving, each stone, each chamber, whispers a story that we can feel even if we cannot fully understand. They are mysteries preserved in limestone, inviting reflection, curiosity, and quiet wonder. The forgotten pyramid of Meidum. In the vast deserts of Egypt, where the sun casts long shadows over endless sands, stands a structure that tells a story of ambition, miscalculation, and mystery. The Pyramid of Meidum is unlike the smooth, towering monuments of Giza. Its stones have partially collapsed, leaving a skeletal outline that hints at both grandeur and imperfection. For centuries, travelers and archaeologists alike have wondered what went wrong here and what secrets lie within its stones. Meidum is often overlooked, overshadowed by its more famous neighbors, yet it holds profound significance. Built during the reign of Pharaoh Huni and completed or modified by Sneferu, it represents a transitional moment in pyramid construction. Its layers speak of experimentation, of engineers pushing the limits of stone and gravity, and yet, the collapse that defines its appearance has left a lingering question: was it a structural failure, or was it a deliberate design choice lost to time? Walking through the site today, one sees the stones jutting awkwardly, some fallen, some precariously balanced. The outer casing that once gave the pyramid a smooth triangular profile is gone, exposing the inner core of stacked blocks. Archaeologists have spent decades examining the structure, measuring angles, testing materials, and piecing together theories. Some suggest the collapse was gradual, the weight of misaligned stones slowly giving way. Others argue that natural disasters, perhaps heavy flooding or seismic activity, played a role. The pyramid's internal chambers, though partially collapsed, reveal traces of burial spaces, corridors, and possible ritual rooms. Pottery fragments and traces of ancient paint hint at ceremonial use. Yet no intact sarcophagus has been found. The tombs remain silent, and the stones hold only the faint whispers of those who built them and those who may have been laid to rest inside. Meidum stands as a lesson in human ambition. The builders were learning, experimenting with new construction techniques, testing angles, and managing enormous stones without the benefit of modern machinery. Each stone, carefully shaped and placed, reflects an understanding of geometry, force, and the natural materials at their disposal. The pyramid's collapse does not diminish their achievement. Instead, it offers insight into the risks and uncertainties of attempting something unprecedented. As archaeologists have examined Meidum over the decades, they have uncovered additional mysteries. Some blocks bear inscriptions, faint and weathered, possibly marking the laborers' names or recording dedications to the gods. The layout of chambers suggests a symbolic plan, perhaps mirroring the cosmos or aligning with celestial events. Yet many details remain speculative. Every stone, every fracture, every angled wall raises more questions than answers. Travelers visiting Meidum often comment on the eerie feeling the site evokes. The collapsed outer layers give it a fragmented, incomplete appearance, and shadows cast across the jagged stones seem to shift throughout the day. The desert wind carries the memory of thousands of years, brushing over surfaces that were once part of a grand vision. Standing there, one can almost imagine the workers hauling stones, chiseling them to fit precisely, and watching as their labor slowly transformed into something monumental, even if imperfect. What happened inside the pyramid after it was built is another enigma. Was it ever used for burial? Did Pharaoh Huni or Sneferu's successors access its chambers? The evidence is fragmentary. Looting in ancient times, natural erosion, and the collapse itself have erased much of the pyramid's history. Still, the remaining stones speak in quiet tones, inviting reflection on ambition, impermanence, and the passage of time. The Meidum Pyramid also holds lessons for modern archaeologists and historians. Unlike the towering perfection of Giza, Meidum is a reminder that ancient construction was not always flawless, that mistakes and adjustments were part of the creative process. Scholars debate its classification. Is it a step pyramid, a true pyramid, or a hybrid? Each interpretation brings new insights and raises further questions about the evolution of Egyptian monumental architecture. Despite its state, Meidum retains a strange beauty. The angles, the exposed core, the contrast of desert sands against weathered stone, all contribute to a sense of awe tinged with melancholy. The pyramid embodies human aspiration, the desire to reach for the eternal, and the realization that even the most ambitious plans may fall short. Yet in its imperfection there is a story of resilience, creativity, and endurance. The pyramid's forgotten nature is part of its charm. Fewer tourists walk its base, and fewer guidebooks emphasize its significance. For those who seek mystery, it offers something rare, an unfinished, partially lost testament to an ancient culture, one that challenges assumptions and sparks curiosity. Scholars continue to debate, excavate, and hypothesize, but much remains hidden beneath the sand and within the fractured stones. As the desert sun moves across the sky, the Pyramid of Meidum remains quiet, a sentinel of time. It reminds us that history is not always about perfection, it is about the human attempt, the boldness to build, and the enduring echo of effort long after those who labored have vanished. Each fallen block, each shadowed corridor, and each fragment of carving holds a story waiting to be pieced together. Walking among the remains, one cannot help but feel the weight of time and the ingenuity of the people who created it. Meidum is a puzzle, a challenge, and a window into the minds of those who dared to shape stone into a vision of eternity. It is a monument to ambition, to learning, and to the mysteries that endure when history only reveals part of its tale. The Temple of the Winged Lions. Hidden in the rugged cliffs of Petra, Jordan, lies a monument that speaks quietly of power, ritual, and artistry lost to time. Known as the Temple of the Winged Lions, this ancient structure is not as famous as the treasury or the monastery, yet it holds mysteries that stir the imagination. Its walls, carved directly into rose-colored rock, depict lions with wings, creatures that do not exist in nature, yet dominate the temple with their silent authority. Built by the Nabateans around the 1st century CE, the temple served as a sacred space, a center of worship, and possibly a political symbol. Every carving, every column, and every relief was designed to communicate something beyond words. The winged lions themselves are more than decoration, they are guardians, protectors of the sacred, and symbols of strength, vigilance, and divine presence. Approaching the site today, one is struck by the scale. The temple stretches across a rocky plateau, its steps worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Columns rise from the stone, some broken, some leaning, yet all hinting at the grandeur once intended by the Nabateans. Archaeologists have noted the precision of the carvings, the lions' muscular bodies, the delicacy of their wings, and the intricate patterns that surround them. The craftsmanship suggests a society with not only skill but a deep spiritual vision. Inside the temple, the chambers are partially preserved, their floors littered with fragments of pottery, inscriptions, and stone reliefs. Scholars debate the temple's precise function. Was it dedicated to a particular deity, or did it serve as a general ceremonial hub? Some propose it may have been linked to lunar or solar rituals, given its alignment and connection to surrounding structures. Others suggest it was a place of royal or civic ceremonies, where leaders asserted their power under the watchful gaze of winged guardians. What makes the Winged Lions Temple particularly intriguing is its combination of natural and constructed space. The Nabateans carved directly into the sandstone cliffs, yet they also transported massive stones to construct platforms, altars, and stairs. This blending of architecture and landscape demonstrates a profound understanding of their environment and a desire to harmonize sacred space with the natural world. Evidence of fire rituals, incense use, and possibly even offerings has been found within the temple, suggesting that the space was alive with religious activity. The echoes of chants and ceremonies, now silent, seem almost tangible as you trace the paths that ancient worshippers once followed. Each corner, each carved lion, and each fallen stone tells a story of devotion, fear, and reverence that has been buried for nearly 2 millennia. The temple has also yielded objects that hint at connections beyond Petra. Pottery shards, coins, and inscriptions suggest that the Nabateans were part of trade networks stretching across Arabia, the Levant, and even the Mediterranean. These items speak of cultural exchange, influence, and wealth, painting a picture of a society that was not isolated but cosmopolitan in its own ancient way. Visitors often remark on the presence of the lions themselves. They dominate the mind even as the body explores the temple. Lions with wings are not animals encountered in daily life, they are symbols bridging the human and the divine. The Nabateans' choice to place them here suggests a deep spiritual significance, a need to connect the earthly and the otherworldly. Their gaze seems to follow you across centuries, inviting contemplation of power, protection, and belief. Over time, natural erosion has altered the temple's appearance. Sandstone softens under wind and rain, edges round, and details fade. Yet this gradual decay adds a sense of quiet mystery. The temple is no longer pristine, no longer commanding in its original splendor, but it has become something else, a whisper of history, a subtle dialogue between human ambition and the inexorable forces of time. Archaeologists continue to study the site, uncovering fragments of inscriptions that hint at the rituals performed, the deities worshipped, and the people who once walked its steps. Despite modern efforts, much remains unknown. Why were the lions winged? What exact ceremonies took place? How did this temple fit into the broader religious and political life of Petra? Each answer leads to new questions, and the silence of missing pieces keeps curiosity alive. The Temple of the Winged Lions is a reminder of how history preserves and obscures in equal measure. Its walls speak of devotion and artistry, yet they withhold full understanding. It demonstrates human creativity, belief, and the desire to leave a lasting mark, even as centuries erase part of the story. Standing before it, one is struck by both the ingenuity of the Nabateans and the impermanence of human endeavor. Even as the sun casts long shadows across the temple's steps, the lions remain. Their wings stretch across stone, their gaze fixed beyond the centuries. They are silent witnesses to human history, guardians of mysteries that will never be fully solved, and in that silence, they invite reflection on faith, on artistry, on impermanence, and on the hidden stories that lie waiting in the sands of Petra. The temple, largely forgotten compared to Petra's other monuments, offers something rare. It provides space for contemplation, for noticing the small details often overlooked. Each carved lion, each stone fragment, each worn stairstep serves as a reminder that history is layered, complex, and full of hidden significance. Here, in the quiet desert, one can imagine the rituals, the prayers, and the footsteps of those who built and worshipped, feeling the pulse of an ancient civilization that still whispers through time. Even now, the Temple of the Winged Lions guards its secrets. It invites questions about belief, artistry, and power. It reminds us that every civilization leaves behind fragments, and that even in their decay, these remnants can inspire awe, reflection, and curiosity. And while we may never fully know the purpose of every carving or corridor, the temple offers a tangible connection to a world long past, a world of mystery, devotion, and human aspiration carved into stone. The fire altars of Kalibangan. In the heart of Rajasthan, India, on the banks of the now dry Ghaggar River, lies the ancient city of Kalibangan. At first glance, it appears as a typical Indus Valley site, rows of baked brick houses, drainage systems, and remnants of urban planning that echo Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. But here, in this quiet mound of earth and sand, archaeologists uncovered something unexpected. Rows of fire altars, deliberately constructed, lined in order, and preserved for nearly 4,500 years. These altars are not random pits or accidental burn marks. They are rectangular structures, carefully laid out in rows, each with evidence of ash, charred bones, and burnt earth. They suggest that Kalibangan was not just a city of traders and farmers, but also a place of ritual fire, of ceremonies performed under open skies, long before Vedic traditions were formally recorded. When archaeologists from the Archaeological Survey of India began excavations in the 1960s, they were surprised. The Indus Valley civilization was already known for its planning, straight streets, standardized bricks, wells, and granaries. But religion, that was harder to find. Unlike Mesopotamia or Egypt, the Indus Valley left behind no towering temples, no ziggurats, no pyramids. Yet here in Kalibangan, something different emerged. Altars arranged with purpose. Some were found in courtyards, others in rows along a platform. Many had evidence of repeated use, layers of ash, signs of sacrificial offerings, and burned clay. In one case, the remains of a small animal, possibly a goat, were discovered within an altar. The implication was clear. Ritual sacrifice had taken place. But what was its meaning? To sit with this discovery is to realize how little we truly know about the Indus Valley's spiritual life. These were not people who left behind scriptures or epic poems. Their language, inscribed on seals and tablets, still resists decipherment. So the fire altars of Kalibangan are not explained by words. They must be interpreted through fragments of stone, clay, and ash. Some scholars suggest these altars point toward early forms of rituals, later described in the Rig Veda. Offerings to fire, prayers to deities, a sacred link between humans and the divine through flame. Others argue they may have been civic rituals, designed to unify communities, or even protective ceremonies against drought and disaster. The presence of multiple altars side by side suggests something collective, something larger than a household tradition. What makes Kalibangan remarkable is the combination of urban life and ritual space. This was not a city that separated the sacred from the ordinary. The altars stood near houses and streets, woven into daily existence. Fire was not just warmth or cooking or light. It was a bridge, a messenger to unseen powers, a purifier, a reminder of cycles beyond human control. Even the design carries meaning. The altars were not haphazard circles of stone but deliberate rectangles, with sides carefully aligned. Some were built in sets of 7, echoing symbolic patterns still found in South Asian ritual today. This suggests continuity, threads of belief running across thousands of years, from the Bronze Age to the present. Standing there today among the ruins, the desert winds sweeping sand across the ancient bricks, one can almost imagine the flicker of flames, the glow of fire against mud walls, the sound of chants rising into the night, the gathering of people around the altars. For them, these fires were not silent. They spoke, carried prayers upward, transformed offerings into smoke and ash. And then, silence. The city declined, like so many others in the Indus world. The Ghaggar River dried, trade routes shifted, and Kalibangan was abandoned. The fires went out, their ashes cooling into the earth. For centuries they lay hidden, until spades uncovered their outline once more. What remains is haunting, charred earth that refuses to give answers. Stones shaped into patterns we cannot fully interpret. Were these offerings to gods we no longer know? Were they linked to agricultural cycles, prayers for rain, for harvest, for fertility of land and people? Or were they acts of devotion, symbolic flames meant to keep the balance of the cosmos alive? Archaeologists debate, but the truth is elusive. The Indus script remains unread, the voices of Kalibangan sealed in silence, and so the fire altars remain as enigmas, fragments of a belief system lost to time, yet strangely familiar. Because even now, fire continues to be sacred, across cultures, across continents. From temple lamps to hearths, from candles lit in prayer to eternal flames burning in memorials, we too still turn to fire as symbol and ritual. To walk among the fire altars of Kalibangan is to walk into that continuity, to feel the connection between past and present, between a civilization gone and traditions that endure. The flames are no longer burning, but the questions they raise still glow. They remind us that the Indus Valley was not only a society of engineers and traders, but also of seekers, of people who looked beyond survival and into the mysteries of existence. The fire altars do not shout their meaning, they whisper, and in that whisper, across 4,500 years, they remind us that even the oldest ashes can carry stories, if we are willing to listen. The rock-cut tombs of Lycia. Along the rugged coastline of southern Turkey, where mountains meet the Mediterranean, lies a land once known as Lycia. Today it is quiet, pine forests, turquoise waters, and sleepy villages scattered across hills. But hidden in cliffsides, staring down at the modern world, are hundreds of stone-carved tombs. They look like houses, like temples, like miniature cities carved straight into rock faces. Their presence is both breathtaking and eerie. These are the tombs of the Lycians, built nearly 2,500 years ago, homes for the dead that still dominate the living landscape. Imagine sailing along the coast in antiquity. As your ship approached the shore, your eyes would rise to the cliffs, and there they were, rows of facades cut into the rock, doorways to nowhere, silent windows in sheer stone walls. They were not hidden, they were made to be seen. For the Lycians, the tombs were both monuments and messages, statements of identity, wealth, and belief about the afterlife. Some resemble small wooden houses, complete with beams and crossbars, all painstakingly carved into stone. Others mimic grand temples, with columns and pediments, as if gods themselves lived inside. But none of these were built for the living. They were eternal dwellings, carved to last forever, where the souls of the departed would rest. The Lycians held a belief that set them apart. They thought the souls of the dead were carried into the afterlife by winged creatures, possibly eagles, possibly mythical beings, who lifted them up from the cliffs into the sky. This is why so many of their tombs sit high above the ground, perched on impossible ledges. To modern eyes it seems almost impractical, even dangerous to carve a tomb hundreds of feet up a sheer rock face. But for the Lycians, height meant closeness to the heavens and safety for the journey beyond. Walking among these tombs today is a strange experience. The entrances are often small, leading into narrow chambers cut into the rock. Inside, there are stone benches or platforms where bodies would have been placed. In some tombs, multiple benches suggest family burials, entire households resting together for eternity. The most famous examples are at Myra, where the tombs cluster like honeycombs across cliffs, and at Phethiae, where the great tomb of Amyntas stands out. Its facade looks like a temple, tall and proud, carved around the 4th century BCE. Step closer, and the detail is astonishing. Each groove and column still visible after more than 2 millennia. Above the entrance, an inscription tells us the name, Amyntas, son of Hermopius. Beyond that, little is known. Who he truly was, what he believed, what life he led, all lost. Only his stone house remains, facing the world in silence. But the Lycians were not an isolated people. They lived at a crossroads of civilizations. Egyptians, Greeks, Persians, and Romans all touched their lands. The tombs reflect this blend. You see local wooden house styles turned into rock facades, but you also see Greek influence in columns and symmetry. Later tombs even show Roman tastes. It was a culture both proud of itself and open to others, mixing styles into something uniquely Lycian. And yet, despite all this artistry, the Lycians left behind few written records. Their language, Lycian, survives in only a handful of inscriptions. We know fragments, not stories. We know names, not lives. The tombs, grand as they are, speak in architecture, not words. There's also mystery in their scale. Some tombs are small and modest, while others are monumental, carved with precision that must have taken years of labor. Were they commissioned by rulers, by elites, by wealthy traders? Were they meant to impress both gods and neighbors alike? We can guess, but the silence of stone offers no confirmation. What we do know is that the Lycians cared deeply about death and memory. Their cities may crumble, their houses may vanish, but their tombs endure. Built high in cliffs, they were designed to last, to keep the dead present even as centuries passed. Think about that for a moment. To walk today in places like Myra or Konos is to walk in the shadow of people who lived 2,500 years ago. Their names are gone, their voices are gone, their stories are erased by time, and yet their tombs still watch the valleys and the seas. They did not vanish. They are still here, witnesses carved in stone, and there's something quietly haunting about their placement. Imagine climbing up those cliffs, tools in hand, to carve a doorway into the rock, every strike of the chisel echoing against stone, knowing this wasn't for the living but for someone's eternal home. Imagine the funerals, the slow climb carrying a body upward, past rocks and trees, placing it inside the tomb, then closing the stone door, stepping back, leaving the dead to their silent journey. When you stand before one today, you feel it, the weight of memory, the sense that this was not just architecture, but a conversation with eternity. But the lighthouse themselves vanished. By the Roman era, their language was fading, their independence was lost. Eventually their identity dissolved into the mix of empires that came and went. Only their tombs remain as guardians of their memory. Now the Mediterranean sun sets over these cliffs. Shadows creep across the carved facades. Birds wheel overhead, the same way they must have when the tombs were first made. And you, standing at the base, feel small, as if the rock itself has been shaped into something more than human, something that resists time. The rock-cut tombs of Lita are not just graves, they are reminders that humans have always longed to be remembered, that we build, not just for today, but for tomorrow, that even when our voices fade, the stones we carve may still whisper, thousands of years later, silent, immovable, carved against the sky, still watching, still waiting. The cliff palace of Mesa Verde, high in the mesas of the American Southwest, where desert air hangs dry and the silence feels ancient, lies a city hidden in stone. Tucked beneath vast sandstone cliffs, sheltered by natural alcoves, the cliff palace of Mesa Verde waits. From a distance, it almost disappears, a scattering of shadows and shapes blending with rock. But as you draw closer, the forms reveal themselves. Walls, towers, rooms, plazas. A city carved into cliffsides, abandoned centuries ago, yet still watching over the canyon. Imagine the year is around the 1200s. The world here is different. No highways, no fences, no sound of machines, only wind through pinyon pines, the call of ravens, and the steady rhythm of life tied to the land. In the cliffs of Mesa Verde, the ancestral Poblones, often called the Anasazi, built something extraordinary. Entire communities, tucked into natural alcoves, their homes blending into stone. The Cliff Palace is the largest of them all, more than 150 rooms, over 20 kivas, which are circular underground chambers used for rituals, ceremonies, or gatherings. Some rooms no larger than closets, others wide enough to host families. Narrow doorways connect the chambers, and ladders once stretched between levels, like veins of wood, linking the city together. To walk here in its prime would have been to walk through a maze of life. Children laughing, fires crackling, voices echoing against stone. The placement is astonishing. The ancestral Poblones chose to build not on flat land, but in sheer cliffs, places you would think unlivable. Why? Some believe it offered protection, hidden from raiders or enemies. Others suggest the cliffs gave shelter from the elements, shade from harsh summer sun, warmth from winter winds. But perhaps it was also spiritual, a closeness to the earth, a blending of home with the living rock. Whatever the reason, the result is breathtaking. Standing before the cliff palace, you see walls rising from the cliff floor to meet the curve of the alcove above. Stones fitted together by hand, plastered smooth, still holding strong after more than 700 years. T-shaped doorways, a hallmark of ancestral Puebloan architecture, punctuate the walls. Towers rise like watchful guardians, their round shapes distinct against the squared rooms around them. Inside, life was simple but organized. Corn was ground on stone, metates, the steady rhythm of hands shaping flour for daily meals. Fireplaces smoked gently, blackening the ceilings of rooms. Water was hauled from nearby springs, carried up through difficult paths. The people farmed on the mesa tops above, cultivating corn, beans and squash, staples that sustained entire communities. From the fields above, they would climb down into their cliffside homes, balancing baskets of harvest along narrow trails. At night, fires flickered within the kivas, casting light upward through entryways. Stories were told, songs sung, traditions passed from one generation to the next. For centuries, this was not just survival, it was home. And then, it was gone. By the late 1200s, the Cliff Palace and many other cliff dwellings were abandoned. Entire villages left behind. Tools, pots, even signs of meals sometimes remained, as if families had only stepped out, never to return. Why did they leave? That is one of Mesa Verde's enduring mysteries. Some say it was drought, the land grew too dry, the crops too unreliable. Others suggest conflict, pressures from neighboring groups, or social upheaval. Perhaps it was many reasons combined, a slow unraveling until life here was no longer sustainable. Whatever the cause, the people who built these cliffside palaces moved on, migrating south, carrying their culture with them. Their descendants, Pueblo peoples of today, still preserve traditions that echo the lives of their ancestors. To walk among the ruins now is to step into silence. The rooms are empty, the ladders gone. Kivas are hollow circles in the stone floor. Yet the architecture still stands, precise and enduring, as if waiting for voices to return. There is a profound calm here. You stand beneath the alcove, the stone arch towering above, and you feel sheltered too, as if the cliffs themselves are holding you. The wind whispers, ravens circle, and the past feels close enough to touch. Archaeologists who study Mesa Verde marvel at the engineering, how every stone was placed by hand, every room constructed without metal tools, wheels, or beasts of burden. It was human effort, patience, and knowledge of the land. The walls are built from sandstone blocks, fitted with mortar made of earth, water, and ash. Even today, the skill is evident. These were not crude shelters. They were crafted, intentional, designed to endure. The kivas in particular hold mystery. Circular, subterranean, often with a small hole in the floor called a sipapu, symbolizing the place of human emergence. Fires would have burned inside, ceremonies performed, prayers offered. What did those ceremonies sound like? What stories were told? What dances were performed under the glow of firelight? We can only imagine. Yet for all the research, for all the careful excavations, there remains something unknowable. The Cliff Palace is not just a ruin, it is a memory, a presence. You can study its stones, but you cannot hear its voices. You can map its rooms, but you cannot feel the heartbeat of the families who once lived here. And perhaps that is the quiet beauty of it. That mystery is not something to be solved, but something to be respected. As night falls in Mesa Verde, the air cools. Stars sharpen in the desert sky. The cliffs fade into shadow, and the palace below becomes hidden once again. For centuries, it has stood here, through storms, through silence, through time itself. The ancestral Puebloans may have moved on, but they left behind a gift, a place where stone and spirit merge, where we are reminded that human life leaves marks, not just on the earth, but within it. The Cliff Palace is not abandoned. It is alive in memory, alive in stone. It still whispers, if you stand quietly enough to listen. The dragon bones of Anyang, far across the Yellow River Plain in northern China, there lies a place where history and mystery meet. The ground here is not just earth. It is layered with fragments of the past, bones, shells, carvings, and questions that stretch back more than 3,000 years. This place is Anyang, once the capital of the Shang dynasty, and home to one of archaeology's most haunting discoveries, the so-called dragon bones. It began with whispers. In the late 1800s, farmers digging fields and apothecaries, grinding medicine, stumbled upon strange pieces of bone. They were heavy, weathered, covered in cracks and markings. Locals called them dragon bones, and believed they held healing powers. Powdered and swallowed, they were sold as remedies for fevers and ailments. For years, these bones were crushed into dust, their secrets ignored. It wasn't until scholars looked closer that the truth began to unfold. These were not dragon bones at all. They were oracle bones. Scapulae of oxen, shells of turtles, inscribed with the earliest known Chinese writing. Every crack, every carved line, was part of a system of divination, a ritual language from one of the world's first great civilizations. Imagine the scene over 3,000 years ago. The Shang kings of Anyang ruled a kingdom that stretched across the fertile plains. They raised bronze vessels, built walled cities, and honored ancestors with elaborate ceremonies. Yet, when the future was uncertain, harvests, wars, weather, childbirth, illness, they turned to fire and bone. A priest would take the bone of an ox, or the shell of a turtle. The surface was smoothed, polished, prepared. Questions were carved into the surface. Will the rains come this year? Should we attack the enemy? Will the king's child be healthy? Then, a heated rod was pressed against the bone. Cracks spider-webbed across the surface, branching like lightning. To the Shang, these cracks were not random. They were answers. The priest, trained to read the patterns, interpreted the cracks, and gave the king his omen. Sometimes the results were inscribed back onto the bone, along with the outcome. Over centuries, thousands of these bones were used, each holding a record of human worry, hope, and decision. When archaeologists began to study them in earnest, they realized they were staring at the dawn of Chinese written history. The characters carved into the bones are the earliest known form of Chinese script. The ancestors are of the very characters still used today. Over 4,500 different characters have been identified. Some instantly recognizable, others still undeciphered. The bones speak not just of rituals, but of life. They mention eclipses, floods, battles, harvests, births, deaths. They trace the concerns of kings, the rhythm of seasons, the fragility of human existence. These are not just relics, they are voices, carved in bone, echoing across time. And yet, mysteries remain. Why did the Shang choose bones and shells? Was it for durability, or was there a deeper symbolism? Why the obsession with fire, with forcing cracks into bone to find truth? To modern eyes, it feels strange, but to the Shang, it was essential, as real as the soil beneath their feet. The greatest question is about the people themselves. The Shang dynasty left behind no grand texts, no libraries. What we know of their lives often comes from these fragments. It is as if the bones themselves are the memory of the civilization, fragile and incomplete. In the 20th century, excavations at Anyang uncovered more than just oracle bones. They revealed entire royal tombs, bronzes, jade ornaments, chariots, weapons, even human sacrifices. This was not just a city. It was a center of ritual power, and the oracle bones were part of that system, a bridge between the human world and the divine. The discovery of these bones changed history. Until then, many believed Chinese writing began with later dynasties. The oracle bones proved otherwise. They pushed written history back more than 1,000 years, and they gave us a glimpse of how one of the world's oldest civilizations thought about fate, time, and destiny. But what makes the dragon bones of Anyang so haunting is not just their historical value. It is their tone. These are not myths written after the fact. They are questions asked in real time. A king, wondering if he should wage war. A family praying for rain. A ruler fearing illness. The cracks in bone are not just marks. They are fragments of human uncertainty, preserved in stone-hard surfaces. Even today, thousands remain untranslated. Some lie in museum drawers. Others scattered across collections. Some were lost forever to the grinding stone, when they were still sold as medicine. Each one is a page torn from a book we can never fully read. To stand before an oracle bone today is to stand in the presence of the very beginning of written thought in East Asia. You see the faint carvings, the branching cracks, and you realize this was once someone's question, urgent and alive. The bone is silent now, but it holds a moment when a human being reached for meaning in the unknown, and that is what makes them more than artifacts. The dragon bones of Anyang remind us that across cultures and centuries, humans have always wrestled with uncertainty. We have always searched for answers in the world around us, in stars, in water, in fire, in stone, in bone. As the night settles over Anyang today, the fields are quiet. The dragon bones no longer whisper to kings, but they whisper to us. They remind us that the past is not gone. It is carved into the world, waiting to be read. And perhaps, as we listen in the stillness, we too are asking the same questions they once did, about life, about fate, about what tomorrow may bring. The rock temples of Lalibela, high in the rugged highlands of northern Ethiopia, lies a town unlike any other. Here, carved not from stone blocks, not built upward with mortar or wood, but hollowed directly into the living rock of the earth, are temples that seem to defy time, logic, and imagination. These are the rock temples of Lalibela, a place where history, legend, and devotion intertwine. The first time you see them, it doesn't feel real. The churches don't rise above the ground. Instead, they sink into it. Entire structures, doors, windows, columns, roofs, cut from a single mass of volcanic tufa rock, chiseled straight down into the earth. They are not just carved, they are excavated, freed from the mountain itself. 11 churches in total, arranged in clusters, connected by trenches, passageways, and tunnels. Some stand tall and angular, with crisp lines and sharp corners, as if dropped from the sky. Others are hidden deep, their entrances disguised, their insides echoing with prayer. And the most famous of them all, Bede Georgis, the Church of St. George, lies in the shape of a perfect cross, sunk deep into the ground, its roof level with the surrounding earth. Standing before it, you don't feel like you are looking at architecture. You feel like you are looking at something grown, organic, inevitable, timeless. The mystery begins with a simple question. How, according to tradition, these churches were built in the late 12th and early 13th centuries under the reign of King Lalibela. His vision, as the stories go, was to create a new Jerusalem, a sacred city, where Ethiopian Christians could worship without the long, dangerous pilgrimage to the Holy Land. But the scale is staggering. 11 rock-hewn churches, carved from solid stone, with no cranes, no steel tools, no electricity, each doorway, arch, and chamber meticulously hollowed with hand tools. Some chambers drop more than 10 meters into the. Some roofs are vast slabs of untouched stone, supported by columns that are also the mountain itself. Archaeologists debate the logistics. Was this possible in a single king's lifetime? Were there thousands of workers? Did they use simple chisels of iron and bronze? Or is there more to the story than we can explain? Local tradition tells a different tale. The people of Lalibela say the work was not done by men alone. They believe angels labored at night, continuing what humans began during the day. This belief, whispered even now, gives the site an otherworldly presence. Standing in the cool shadow of a carved archway, it is not difficult to feel that something beyond human strength shaped these temples. Each church has its own design, its own atmosphere. Bede Medhenalem, said to be the largest monolithic church in the world, looks like a massive stone basilica. Its interior is cool and dim, its columns rising like living trees from the stone floor. Bede Medhenalem, dedicated to the Virgin, is more intimate. Its walls once covered with faint traces of paint and carvings. Others are linked by hidden corridors, where pilgrims move barefoot through smooth tunnels, emerging into open courtyards, where the sky cuts sharp against the stone walls. The churches are not ruins, they are alive. For over 800 years, prayers have echoed within these walls. Monks still chant at dawn, pilgrims still walk for days to kneel on the stone floors. The air smells of incense and candle smoke, just as it must have centuries ago. And yet, questions linger. Why here? Why in this remote part of Ethiopia, in a landscape both harsh and beautiful? Was it purely devotion, or was there symbolism in carving into the earth itself? Some suggest the churches may align with old trade routes, with rivers and stars, their arrangement, a coded map of heaven and earth. Others wonder if the inspiration came from earlier rock-cut architecture, in places like Petra, in Jordan, or Cappadocia, in Turkey. But the truth is, Lalibela feels different. Where Petra's facades are carved into cliffs, these churches are carved completely out of isolation, separated from the mountain around them. They are not decoration. They are entire buildings sculpted downward. Legends say that when King Lalibela returned from exile, poisoned by his brother, he had visions of heaven. Angels showed him a city of stone, a place untouched by time, carved from earth itself. Inspired, he vowed to build it on earth, here, in Ethiopia. Whether or not the vision was real, the result stands. 11 temples, unified in purpose, but each unique in form. Archaeologists studying the site today still struggle to explain the precision. Some walls are so perfectly smooth, it looks as though they were sliced with machinery. Drainage systems and water channels were carefully engineered. keeping the structures safe from erosion and collapse. In some places, chambers are hidden, accessible only through narrow tunnels, as though meant for secret rituals. How did they know where to carve? How did they measure depth, width, balance, without modern instruments? Each mistake would have been irreversible, a crack, a collapse, and the temple would be lost. And yet, they stand, unbroken, symmetrical, flawless. At night, the churches glow with candlelight. Pilgrims sing, their voices carrying through the rock-hewn corridors. It feels less like entering a monument, and more like stepping into another time, where faith and stone are inseparable. And for those who come as outsiders, the feeling is unforgettable. The air is cool, the stone walls press close, and as you walk the trenches, you realize you are moving not on the earth, but inside it. Every step carries the weight of centuries. To some, Lalibela is proof of extraordinary human devotion, what people can achieve when faith demands the impossible. To others, it remains a mystery, a feat too great, too precise, too perfect for the tools of its time. But perhaps that is the point. Lalibela is not meant to be explained fully. It is meant to be experienced, to leave us questioning. Were these churches truly carved in just a few decades? Did angels really lend their hands? Or was it something in between, a combination of human endurance, vision, and perhaps a little mystery that cannot be measured? As the dawn breaks over Ethiopia's highlands, the sun paints the stone churches gold. The pilgrims gather once more, their chants rising into the sky, their footsteps worn into the ancient paths, and the rock temples of Lalibela continue their quiet vigil, not ruins of the past, but living mysteries of faith, devotion, and stone. The stone head of Nisnos. In the heart of Yemen, a land carved by mountains and deserts, where ancient kingdoms once flourished and incense routes carried riches across the world, there lies a mystery that few people outside the region have ever heard of. Among fragments of forgotten temples and weathered stones, a single figure emerges from the earth, the stone head of Nisnos. It is not grand in scale like the pyramids of Egypt, or the statues of Easter Island. Yet the head possesses a strange gravity, the kind that pulls you in, keeps you staring, and leaves questions echoing long after you've walked away. The face is simple, carved with sharp lines, its features rough but intentional, wide eyes, a broad nose, lips pressed tight. Time has chipped at it, worn it smooth, but still, its expression is there, something solemn, something enduring. It is a human face, but not quite. A mask of stone, frozen in silence. What makes the stone head of Nisnos so fascinating is not only how it looks, but where it was found. Yemen is one of the oldest cultural crossroads on earth. Long before Islam, long before even Rome and Greece, the kingdoms of Saba, Kataben, and Himyar thrived here. They built temples to the moon god Al-Makka, raised stone pillars, and controlled the incense trade that filled temples across the ancient world with smoke and scent. In this land of sacred offerings and monumental structures, the head feels both familiar and out of place. Was it once part of a statue, a guardian at the doorway of a temple? Was it carved to represent a king, a priest, or perhaps even a deity? Or was it something more symbolic, an idol, whose meaning has slipped through the cracks of time? Archaeologists debate, but answers are scarce. The head was found in fragments, with no inscriptions to anchor it to a name or a time. Its style suggests the early centuries of South Arabian civilization, but style can mislead. Was it local? Was it imported by travelers on the incense roads? Did it belong to a temple that now lies buried under sand and ruin? Some scholars suggest it may have been deliberately broken, part of a ritual of destruction, where idols were shattered at the end of a dynasty, or in times of religious change. Others wonder if it fell victim to simple erosion, its body crumbling, while the head remained, stubborn against time. But when you look into its eyes, even eroded as they are, it feels intentional, as though it was meant to be found in this state. A fragment, a whisper, not the whole story. The mystery deepens when you consider Yemen's role as a meeting point of cultures. Traders from Africa, Mesopotamia, India, and the Mediterranean passed through these valleys. Could the stone head of Nisnos represent not a single people, but a blend of traditions, a fusion of gods and ancestors, carved into one enduring face? Imagine the travelers who might have seen it centuries ago. Caravans, moving through the heat, stopping by temples to rest and offer incense. Pilgrims raising their eyes to stone figures as they prayed for safe passage. Rulers and priests, demanding loyalty not just to themselves but to the gods they embodied. Somewhere in that world, the stone head of Nisnos stood, silent, watching, Today it rests in relative obscurity, far from the crowds that flock to other world-famous monuments. Yet, in its obscurity its power, it feels personal, almost secret. When you encounter it, there are no grand signs, no polished museums, no endless tourist chatter. There is only the stone, the face, and the quiet. And in that quiet, your imagination fills the gaps. Was this head once brightly painted, its eyes outlined, its lips red? Was it crowned with gold or adorned with offerings? Did worshippers lay incense at its base, whispering prayers that rose into the desert air? Or perhaps, was it simply a grave marker, meant to represent not a god, but a person, an ancestor whose face, carved in stone, ensured they would never be forgotten? Every culture has its way of preserving memory. The Egyptians mummified their dead. The Mesopotamians inscribed their names in clay. The people of Yemen, perhaps, carved their identities into stone. And the stone head of Nisnas, whether king, priest, god, or ancestor, may be one of those identities that still lingers, even as the centuries stripped away its story. For archaeologists, the frustration lies in its silence. Without texts, without records, without context, an artifact becomes a puzzle with missing pieces. You can hold it, measure it, date it, but you cannot know the intention that shaped it. And perhaps that is why the stone head fascinates more than even the largest ruins. It is incomplete. It forces you to imagine, to reach into the unknown. And maybe that is the real power of Nisnas. Not as a solved riddle, but as an open door, an invitation to wonder, to ask questions that history cannot answer. Picture yourself standing before it, the heat of Yemen's sun on your skin, dust in the air, a silence, broken only by the wind moving through the hills. In front of you, this weathered head looks back, not with expression, but with endurance. It has seen kingdoms rise and fall, wars fought and forgotten, prayers whispered and lost, and still, it remains. Not as a monument everyone knows, not as a wonder written into textbooks, but as a fragment of humanity, stubborn against time, daring us to remember that even the smallest stones can carry the heaviest mystery. The forgotten oracle of Dodona. In the rugged mountains of northwestern Greece, far from the bustle of Athens or the shores of the Aegean, there lies a grove that was once considered one of the most sacred places on earth. A place where kings, warriors, and wanderers journeyed not for gold or conquest, but for answers. This was Dodona, the oldest known oracle in Greece, older even than the famous shrine of Apollo at Delphi. Today it is only ruins scattered in a valley, fragments of walls and broken stones. Yet for more than 1,000 years, it was alive with whispers, prayers, and the rustle of sacred oak leaves that were said to carry the voice of the gods. The heart of Dodona. Unlike Delphi, where a priestess spoke in trance from a temple, Dodona was simpler, more primal. Its power came not from smoke or hallucinogenic vapors, but from nature itself. At its center was a single oak tree. The people believed Zeus, the father of gods, lived in that oak. His voice was not thunder in the sky, but the sound of wind through the branches. His messages were not written in stone, but carried in the movement of leaves, in the creak of wood, in the calls of doves that nested above. The priests and priestesses of Dodona had one task: to listen, to sit beneath the oak, to hear the rustle of leaves, the clang of bronze cauldrons hung around the tree, the cries of birds, and to translate these sounds into prophecy. Imagine standing there centuries ago, the air still and expectant, the grove silent, except for the murmur of leaves. A traveler steps forward with a question. Should he journey across the sea? Should he trust an ally? Should he go to war? The priest listens to the wind, to the leaves, to the metal ringing faintly, and gives an answer, a decision that might change the fate of a life, a kingdom, or even a civilization. The visitors of Dodona. For centuries, people came from across the Greek world and beyond. Farmers seeking guidance on when to sow their crops, leaders asking if their armies would prevail, colonists wanting to know if their voyages would succeed. Even kings made the journey, humbling themselves before the oak, waiting for Zeus to answer. The poet Homer mentions Dodona in both the Iliad and the Odyssey. Achilles, desperate for divine help, prays to Zeus at Dodona. Odysseus, lost and weary, is told to visit Dodona to hear what the gods have planned for him. These aren't side notes. To the Greeks, Dodona was essential, a place where even the greatest heroes sought direction, a mystery older than Greece. What makes Dodona especially fascinating is its age. Archaeological evidence suggests the oracle was already active by at least the 2nd millennium BC, long before classical Greece, before Homer's epics, even before the temples of Athens were built. Some scholars believe Dodona may trace back to pre-Greek, even prehistoric religious traditions. The oak, the earth, the doves. These aren't symbols of polished city religion. They feel older, more primal, closer to the animistic beliefs of early humans who saw spirit in trees, rivers, and stones. Dodona may have been a bridge between those ancient nature-based traditions and the structured pantheon of Olympus. How did it work? The question that lingers: how could people find meaning in the sound of leaves? Perhaps it was suggestion, the mind shaping answers from the randomness of wind. Perhaps the priests had a method, an oral tradition, passed down for centuries, that guided interpretation. Or maybe it was something simpler, the act of waiting, listening, and opening oneself to the silence of nature. In our modern world of constant noise, we forget how powerful quiet can be. At Dodona, people stopped, listened to the oak, and believed that in those rustles and creaks, a god spoke. Decline of the oracle. But like all sacred places, Dodona's power did not last forever. As Greek religion evolved, Delphi overshadowed it. Delphi had grandeur, Apollo, temples of marble, and a priestess whose riddles fascinated poets and politicians. Dodona seemed too simple by comparison. Just an oak tree in the mountains. The oracle lingered, though, into the Roman period. Emperors still sent questions. Pilgrims still came. But eventually, new religions and political changes dimmed its flame. By late antiquity, Christianity spread through the region, and the sacred oak was cut down. The whispers of Zeus in the leaves went silent. All that remained were stones, broken walls, and memories of a time when a tree held the voice of a god. Standing among the ruins today, if you visit Dodona, you won't find priests, or pilgrims, or offerings. What you will find is quiet. The ruins lie in a valley surrounded by mountains. The remains of a theater still curve around the hillside, where festivals were once held. Foundations of temples and shrines scatter across the ground. And though the sacred oak is gone, new oaks grow nearby, their leaves moving in the wind just as they did thousands of years ago. If you close your eyes and listen, you can almost imagine it. The rustle of leaves, the faint metallic ring of cauldrons, the murmurs of priests interpreting sounds only they could understand. For a moment, you are back in that ancient world, standing among travelers who came with desperate hopes and impossible questions. The enduring mystery. Why does Dodona matter? Because it reminds us of something essential. Humans have always sought meaning in the unknown. Long before science, before logic, before written law, we looked to the world around us. The wind, the trees, the voices of animals, and believed they carried wisdom. Dodona was not just an oracle, it was a mirror of human need. The need to ask, to hope, to be guided. And though the oak is gone, that need remains. Standing in Dodona today, amid ruins and mountains, you realize the silence itself is the answer. The same silence that once gave voice to the gods still speaks, if you know how to listen. And maybe that is why Dodona was never truly forgotten. The stones may be broken, the oak long vanished, but the idea that the universe whispers if we are still enough to hear it, continues to live. The rock gong of Tanzania. In the rolling hills of East Africa, where the land stretches wide, and the horizon burns with the deep colors of the sun, there is a stone unlike any other. To most, it looks like an ordinary boulder, resting quietly among grass, trees, and scattered rock. But when struck, this stone sings. This is the rock gong of Tanzania, one of the world's oldest musical instruments, not made by human hands but carved slowly over ages, by time and nature. It may look like part of the landscape, but for thousands of years, people gathered around it, striking it with stones, filling the air with tones that carried across valleys. It is not just a rock, it is a voice from the earth itself, a stone that sings. When you approach the rock gong, it doesn't reveal its secret immediately. It looks heavy, silent, immovable. But when a hand lifts another stone and taps against its surface, the boulder answers. A deep, metallic ringing emerges, resonating with a sound that feels alive. Different parts of the rock create different tones, some low and echoing, others sharp and clear. Unlike instruments carved by humans, this gong was discovered, not made. The stone already had the right density, the right mineral content, and the right surface tension to produce sound. All it needed was someone to listen closely enough to realize the music hidden inside. A gathering place, Archaeologists believe these rock gongs were more than curiosities, they were gathering points. For communities that lived in the region thousands of years ago, sound was power. A boulder that could echo through the hills wasn't just an instrument, it was a connection, a way to summon people, to mark events, to communicate across distance. Imagine a fire-lit night, long before cities, when families sat together under the open sky. A group gathers around the rock, the stars above, the grass moving gently in the wind. Someone strikes the stone, a note rises, strong and clear. Others join, each with a rhythm, creating patterns that echo in the darkness. The sound carries, calling neighbors, signaling ritual, perhaps even marking the beginning of something sacred. Music older than memory. What makes the Tanzanian rock gong remarkable is not just its sound, but its age. Evidence suggests humans were striking these rocks tens of thousands of years, long before writing, before temples, even before agriculture spread widely. Our ancestors were making music with stones like this. Think about that. Before there were drums, harps or flutes, there were rocks. People discovered that the earth itself could be struck to sing, and in those vibrations, they found rhythm, expression, and maybe even communication with the unseen. Some archaeologists believe the rock gong was not only musical, but spiritual. The sound may have been tied to rituals, harvest celebrations, healing gatherings, or ceremonies for the dead. For cultures that saw spirit in stone, water, and sky, the voice of the rock could have been the voice of the divine. The mystery of use. What exactly did the people of ancient Tanzania use the gong for? That remains uncertain. Unlike temples or burial grounds, rock gongs do not leave behind inscriptions or carvings. They leave sound, which vanishes into air. Some suggest they were used for communication, like early drums, sending signals across valleys. Others see them as ritual instruments, played during dances or ceremonies. Another theory is that they were social tools, places where groups met to create music and strengthen bonds. The truth may be all of these at once. Human life has always been layered, practical, emotional, spiritual. A single rock could call a community together, accompany a ritual, and entertain children, all within the same lifetime. The sound of connection. One of the striking things about the rock gong is how modern it feels. When struck, it produces tones not unlike a metallic drum or a primitive xylophone. The resonance lingers in the air, vibrating against the body. If you close your eyes while listening, you might forget you're hearing stone. It feels crafted, intentional, as though an unseen musician shaped it for purpose. And yet, it is only nature. A reminder that sometimes, the most advanced tools we imagine are simply gifts waiting to be noticed. Echoes across the world. Tanzania is not alone. Similar rock gongs have been found across Africa, in Nigeria, Uganda, and Sudan, and even beyond the continent, in Asia and Oceania. Wherever they appear, they remind us of a truth. Long before humans separated into nations and cultures, we all shared the same instinct. We struck the world around us, and when it answered, we made music. It is humbling to think that a sound from a rock in Tanzania may be part of the same story as a hollow log drum in Papua New Guinea or a carved bone flute in Europe. Music is older than civilization. It is older than history. It is part of being human. Standing beside the gong today, the Tanzanian rock gong is quiet most of the time. It rests under the same sky it has known for thousands of years, weathered but enduring. Visitors come, archaeologists study, but its voice waits in silence. If you were to stand before it at dusk, the sun slipping down and the land cooling, you might be tempted to try it. To pick up a smaller stone, lift it carefully, and strike the surface. The moment the note rises, clear and ringing, you would feel something few artifacts can give. A direct connection to the past. The sound you hear is the same sound someone else heard 10,000 years ago. The same vibration, the same echo through the air. In that moment, you are not separated from them by centuries. You are standing together, both listening to the earth sing. The unspoken legacy. Why does the rock gong matter? Because it shows us that human history is not only about survival or war or monuments. It is also about play, creativity, and sound. It is about the joy of making something resonate, about listening and repeating, about finding meaning in vibration. The gong does not tell us what rituals were performed, or what songs were sung, or what prayers were whispered. It holds no script, no carvings, no words, but it does hold a sound. And in that sound, there is memory. The sleep of stone tonight, the rock gong lies silent under the Tanzanian sky. The grass sways gently. The night insects hum. The rock waits, as it always has. Its voice is quiet, but not gone. All it takes is one strike, one hand, one listening ear, and the past awakens. And maybe that is the real mystery of the rock gong, that in its stillness, it holds both silence and song, waiting for us to choose which we hear. The bronze spears of Luristan, nestled within the rugged mountains of western Iran, there exists a land where history rests quietly among valleys and rock formations. It is a place where civilizations long forgotten left behind fragments of their lives, delicate traces of culture and tools that whisper stories across thousands of years. Among these relics, one of the most striking and enigmatic finds are the bronze spears of Luristan. Unlike ordinary weapons, these spears are not merely functional tools of war. Their bronze surfaces shimmer with a muted luster that speaks to craftsmanship and intention. Every spear is unique, decorated with subtle engravings, stylized motifs of animals, spirals, and abstract designs, each telling a story we may never fully understand. For the ancient Luristan people, these spears were far more than instruments of combat. They were symbols of power, status, and perhaps even spiritual belief, imbued with significance that transcended mere utility. Archaeologists first uncovered these spears in the 19th and 20th centuries, buried in tombs and hilltop mounds. They were often found alongside other weapons, ceremonial objects, and ornaments, suggesting that they were part of a larger tradition of burial practices and ritual. The very fact that they were carefully placed among the dead indicates a reverence for both the living and the deceased, a recognition that the spear had meaning beyond its edge. When we examine the craftsmanship, it becomes evident that Luristan bronze smiths had mastered techniques that allowed them to create slender, elegant spears, perfectly balanced and enduring. Some of these weapons measure over a meter in length, their tips sharpened to deadly precision. Yet, despite their lethal potential, they are often adorned with patterns that seem to celebrate life rather than destroy it. Tiny representations of goats, snakes, and birds can be found etched into the bronze, perhaps signifying protection, strength, or a connection to the spiritual world. The discovery of the spears raises questions that continue to puzzle modern scholars. Who carried these weapons? Were they warriors, chieftains, or shamans? The tombs reveal men, sometimes women, who were buried with these tools, hinting at a society where status may have been more nuanced than the historical record can tell us. It is also remarkable that these spears have survived the centuries relatively intact, a testament to the skill of the metalworkers and the durability of bronze itself. As we consider their function, we must remember that the Luristan region was a place of constant movement, where communities navigated rivers, mountains, and open plains. The spear was not just a weapon, it was a companion for survival. Hunting and defense were inseparable from daily life, and a well-crafted spear could provide food, protection, and security. Yet, in Luristan, craftsmanship elevated the spear beyond its practicality. The object became art, ritual, and statement all at once. Beyond their physical beauty, these spears invite reflection on human ingenuity. Long before industrialization, before mass production, artisans in these valleys forged metal with patience and precision. They understood the properties of bronze, how to cast it, hammer it, and polish it to a functional and aesthetically pleasing form. Each spear carries within it the hands, minds, and intentions of people who lived thousands of years ago, reaching across time to communicate their skill and vision. The symbolism embedded in these weapons also suggests that they were more than tools, they were markers of identity. A warrior's spear might have indicated his lineage, achievements, or connection to local deities. Each curve, each decorative line, held meaning that could have been immediately understood by those who shared the culture. To us, these symbols are enigmatic, their precise meanings lost, but their presence evokes a sense of mystery that continues to captivate historians and enthusiasts alike. Archaeologists often marvel not only at the technical achievement, but also at the aesthetic sensibility. In an age without modern machinery, humans shaped bronze into weapons that were simultaneously practical, artistic, and symbolic. The careful balance of form and function demonstrates a culture that understood the intersection of survival and beauty. These spears also serve as reminders of the fragility and resilience of history. For centuries, tombs and mounds preserved them, shielding them from the elements, human interference, and time itself. Yet their survival is not guaranteed. Looting, environmental changes, and neglect threaten to erase these voices from the past. The bronze spears of Luristan are not just artifacts, they are storytellers. They speak of people who lived, struggled, celebrated, and mourned in a landscape that has remained largely unchanged for millennia. When held, even indirectly through photographs or museum displays, the weight of these spears carries a sense of connection. The metal is cold to the touch, smooth from craftsmanship, yet imbued with human energy that traveled through centuries. They are physical links to lives we can only imagine, echoing the values, fears and triumphs of a people whose names are mostly unknown. The mystery of the Luristan spears deepens when considering their broader context. Bronze weaponry appears across the ancient Near East, but few regions exhibit the combination of artistry, function, and ritual significance that Luristan does. Why did this valley become a hub of such meticulous metalwork? How did knowledge of metallurgy spread, and who determined the symbolic motifs? These questions remain open, inviting contemplation and research even today. In observing the spears, one can also sense the daily lives of those who used them. They navigated rugged terrain, hunted for sustenance, and protected their communities, relying on tools that demanded both skill and respect. Each strike of a spear, each careful placement in a burial mound, tells a story of survival, responsibility, and human creativity. Perhaps what is most remarkable is the quiet endurance of these objects. Thousands of years have passed, yet the spears remain, their edges intact, their engravings legible. They offer a bridge across time, inviting us to consider the continuum of human life, how our ancestors shaped tools, ideas, and rituals that still resonate in subtle ways today. For those who study them, the bronze spears of Luristan are more than archaeological finds, they are companions in imagination. They allow us to reconstruct lives without written records, to hear the silent rhythm of a society long gone, to witness how humans combined art, ritual, and survival into a single enduring form. Even as we examine these spears in museums or pictures, it is easy to imagine a distant ancestor holding one, standing in the soft light of dawn, over the valleys, adjusting the grip, preparing for a hunt or a ceremony, feeling the cool metal pulse lightly in their hand. The spear is not inert, it carries purpose, presence and possibility, and so, the bronze spears of Luristan remain among the most captivating artifacts of the ancient world. They are objects of beauty, function, and mystery, and through them, the voices of the past whisper. They invite us to slow down, to imagine lives different yet connected to our own, and to reflect on the ingenuity and creativity that define humanity. In their stillness, they continue to speak, patiently, calmly, with a quiet dignity that has traveled thousands of years to reach us. The stone throne of Knossos. In the heart of Crete, among the ruins of what was once the bustling palace complex of Knossos, lies a remarkable artifact that has silently witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. It is the stone throne, a seat of authority, ritual, and perhaps something far more enigmatic than simple governance. Unlike the grand halls of modern power, this throne is ancient, carved from local stone, and yet it carries an undeniable presence, as though it holds the echoes of those who once sat upon it, making decisions that shaped their world. Archaeologists first uncovered the throne in the early 20th century amid the labyrinthine corridors and ceremonial rooms of the Minoan palace. The throne itself is modest in appearance, yet its simplicity belies its significance. Set into a niche within a ceremonial room, it faces a platform, suggesting that it was more than a place to sit. It was a center of observation, judgment, and perhaps even spiritual communion. The room, with its carefully laid frescoes and strategically positioned benches, seems designed to emphasize the throne, drawing attention to the person who occupied it. As we study the throne, it becomes apparent that it was not meant for comfort alone. The Minoans, whose culture flourished more than 3 millennia ago, infused their architecture and artifacts with symbolism. Every curve, every angle of the stone, may have held meaning. It is said that the person seated here would have been seen as the mediator between the people and the gods, a representative of divine order on earth. To sit on this throne was to bear responsibility for both human affairs and sacred rituals. The discovery of the throne raised immediate questions. Who were the individuals who used it? Kings or queens, priests or priestesses? While some scholars suggest it may have belonged to the high priestess, given the prominence of women in Minoan religious life, others argue it could have been a seat of secular power, reserved for rulers who governed both palace and people. The truth remains elusive, obscured by centuries of history and destruction. Around the throne, archaeologists found evidence of ceremonial activity, fragments of pottery, small votive offerings, and painted frescoes depicting processions and ritual gatherings. The throne's placement in this room, slightly elevated and facing the entrance, suggests that it was not isolated but part of a larger communal experience. Those who approached it, whether officials, priests, or common citizens, would have been acutely aware of the throne's symbolic weight, understanding that it was a focal point of authority, sanctity, and order. The craftsmanship of the throne itself is subtle but precise. Carved from a single piece of stone, it demonstrates not only technical skill but also aesthetic sensibility. The seat is wide enough to accommodate a person comfortably, yet its back rises with an imposing, almost architectural dignity. The stone has worn slightly over millennia, softening the edges, giving it an almost organic feel, as though it had grown naturally from the floor of the ceremonial room. This sense of permanence and integration with its surroundings reinforces the notion that the throne was central to the life of the palace, both physically and symbolically. The stone throne also invites contemplation of the Minoan worldview. The palace of Knossos itself is complex, almost labyrinthine in design, with interconnected rooms, corridors, and ceremonial spaces. The throne sits within this complexity, yet it commands attention, anchoring the palace in a single symbolic point. To the Minoans, the throne may have represented stability amidst the intricate patterns of life, a place from which order, ritual, and perhaps judgment flowed. Artifacts found nearby provide further context. Small figurines, some representing animals, others human, suggest ritualistic practices and offerings. Frescoes depicting bulls, sacred trees, and ceremonial dances hint at the religious and cultural framework in which the throne existed. Every detail around the throne speaks to a society deeply attuned to symbolism, ritual, and the interconnectedness of human and divine realms. Over time, the throne has become a lens through which modern scholars attempt to understand the Minoan civilization. Its preservation allows us to glimpse the ways in which power and spirituality were intertwined. Unlike stone thrones of later empires, designed to intimidate or awe, the stone throne of Knossos seems to invite reflection. It is as much a symbol of contemplation and ritual as it is of authority. Those who sat upon it would have understood their place not only in the social hierarchy, but also in the cosmic order, balancing human needs with divine expectations. Yet the throne remains enigmatic. Despite extensive excavation and research, many questions linger. What specific rituals took place here? Was the throne reserved for a single individual, or did multiple figures use it across seasons, years, or generations? How did the Minoans perceive the intersection of political and religious power, and how is that reflected in the throne's design and placement? These questions are part of the allure, inviting both scholars and enthusiasts to imagine the lives of people long gone. The stone throne also serves as a reminder of impermanence and endurance. The palace of Knossos was eventually abandoned, likely due to natural disasters and societal changes, yet the throne endures. The stone has outlasted centuries of dust, earthquakes, and human curiosity, preserving a tangible connection to a culture that flourished thousands of years ago. In this way, the throne becomes more than a seat. It is a storyteller, silent yet eloquent, bridging the gap between past and present. In contemplating the throne, it is easy to visualize the palace alive with movement, attendants bringing offerings, priests performing rituals, citizens approaching with reverence, and a central figure seated upon the throne, overseeing, judging, or participating in sacred ceremonies. Each detail weaves together, forming a vivid tapestry of life, authority, and belief, all centered around this single, enduring stone artifact. The stone throne of Knossos also challenges modern perceptions of leadership and ritual. It asks us to consider how societies anchor authority and sanctity, how they create spaces that communicate power and meaning without words. For the Minoans, the throne was not just a tool, it was a message etched in stone, a statement of permanence, significance, and reverence. As centuries passed, the throne became buried and forgotten, hidden beneath layers of history, until archaeologists brought it back into the light. Today, visitors to the Knossos site can see its contours, sense its scale, and imagine the ceremonies that once took place. The experience is intimate, almost meditative, allowing us to connect with a civilization that, despite being long gone, continues to speak through stone, through placement, and through the enduring presence of the throne itself. The stone throne of Knossos reminds us of the subtle power of artifacts. Not every ancient relic shouts its importance. Some, like this throne, speak quietly yet profoundly, inviting contemplation, curiosity, and reflection. Its endurance through time, its centrality in ceremonial life, and the mystery surrounding its precise purpose make it a singular window into a world that is at once familiar and alien to us. In the stillness of the palace ruins, the throne sits, waiting. It waits for observers to pause, to imagine, to step into a time when stone and ritual, human and divine, intertwined in a delicate, enduring balance. It does not demand attention through spectacle. It commands respect through quiet presence, a presence that stretches across millennia, bridging the gap between our world and that of the Minoans. The golden pectoral of Tolstaya Mogila, in the rolling plains of what is now Ukraine, beneath the soil that stretches uninterrupted for centuries, lies a treasure that speaks of the artistry, belief, and power of a people long gone. It is the golden pectoral of Tolstaya Mogila, a masterpiece of Scythian craftsmanship, discovered in a burial mound that had kept its secrets for more than 2,000 years. The pectoral is more than jewelry. It is a narrative in gold, a story frozen in metal, revealing both the daily life and spiritual world of the Scythians, a nomadic culture whose influence stretched across the vast Eurasian steppe. The mound itself, Tolstaya Mogila, was excavated in the mid-20th century, and among its treasures, the pectoral immediately drew attention. Unlike any ordinary ornament, it is a solid, intricately worked gold disc, weighing nearly a kilogram, its surface covered with tiny figures and scenes, each telling a fragment of Scythian life. Warriors on horseback, hunting scenes, mythological creatures, animals of every size and shape. The level of detail is extraordinary. Each scene is carefully composed, almost cinematic, as if the Scythians themselves wanted their lives and beliefs to endure beyond the grave. As you imagine holding the pectoral, the craftsmanship becomes even more astonishing. The gold has been hammered and engraved, shaped with techniques that suggest not only technical skill, but an artistic sensibility that rivals the finest works of antiquity. The figures are dynamic. Horses seem to gallop across the surface. Hunters draw their bows. Eagles spread their wings in mid-flight. The scenes flow in concentric arcs, almost as though the pectoral itself carries a rhythm, a motion, a pulse of the life it depicts. It is not merely decoration, it is storytelling, frozen in radiant gold. The burial mound itself, designed to honor a Scythian noble, reflects the status and importance of the individual interred there. Alongside the pectoral were weapons, horse trappings, and other grave goods, each selected to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. The pectoral, worn on the chest, or placed atop the body, would have been visible as a symbol of power, prestige, and divine favor. It conveys authority, but also a connection to the natural and spiritual worlds, suggesting that the Scythians saw no separation between life, death, and the forces they revered. What makes the golden pectoral particularly compelling is the story it tells beyond mere opulence. Each figure, each animal, each scene is carefully chosen. Lions and griffins appear alongside stags and goats. Hunters track their prey through forests and across rivers. Scenes of ritual, possibly sacrifices or ceremonial processions, are etched with precision, hinting at the spiritual life of the Scythians. The pectoral becomes a lens, allowing us to glimpse a culture that existed at the edge of recorded history, whose traditions and beliefs are mostly known only through objects like this. The artistry of the pectoral also raises questions about the Scythians' interactions with other cultures. Some motifs suggest influence from Greek, Persian, and Central Asian traditions. The Scythians were not isolated. They were travelers, traders, and warriors moving across vast territories. The pectoral reflects this exchange, blending native motifs with foreign styles, creating something uniquely Scythian. It is an artifact that speaks of a world in motion, a culture that thrived on mobility, yet sought permanence in the objects it left behind. Holding the pectoral in mind, one can imagine the care with which it was made. Craftsmen would have worked tirelessly, shaping and engraving each element with precision, passing down knowledge through generations. The gold itself, luminous even after centuries underground, would have symbolized not just wealth but immortality, a medium through which stories and status could endure beyond a single lifetime. The pectoral becomes both an artistic triumph and a spiritual tool, connecting the human to the divine, the living to the dead. As archaeologists uncovered the burial mound, the pectoral revealed more than craftsmanship, it revealed a philosophy. The Scythians, through this gold masterpiece, demonstrated an understanding of narrative, symbolism, and legacy. They recognized the importance of preserving memory, of crafting a message that would survive the decay of flesh and the passage of time. The pectoral is a bridge between past and present, allowing us to connect with people who lived, fought, celebrated, and believed in worlds very different from our own, yet fundamentally human in their hopes, fears, and creativity. Despite its beauty, the pectoral also embodies mystery. We cannot fully know the identity of the noble for whom it was made. We can only speculate on the significance of each scene, the choices of animals, the arrangement of figures. Was it meant to protect the soul in the afterlife, to display authority to the living, or perhaps to narrate a personal story, a history that only the wearer fully understood? These questions linger, allowing the artifact to speak in whispers rather than declarations. The pectoral also reminds us of the fragility of human achievement. Buried for centuries, it survived wars, the shifting of empires, and natural decay. Its endurance is a testament to the skill of its creators, but also to the care with which the Scythians treated their treasures. Unlike fleeting monuments of stone, the pectoral has traveled through time, relatively intact, carrying within it the heartbeat of a vanished world. In examining the golden pectoral, one can also imagine the reactions of those who first saw it. Excavators, upon brushing away centuries of soil, would have been struck by the radiance of gold, the intricate scenes, and the palpable sense of life captured in metal. It is an artifact that elicits wonder not only because of its material, but because of the world it represents. A culture that valued skill, narrative, and legacy, and whose whispers reach us through a simple yet extraordinary object. The pectoral, resting today in a museum collection, invites contemplation. Visitors can trace the animals with their eyes, follow the hunters across arcs of gold, and imagine the ceremonial life of a Scythian noble. It draws the observer into a slow, reflective understanding of a people whose presence has faded, yet whose voice survives in artifacts that refuse to be silent. In this way, the pectoral continues to fulfill its purpose, to narrate, to symbolize, to connect the past to the present. The painted coffins of Beni Hassan. Along the gentle curves of the Nile, where the desert meets the river's fertile banks, lies a site that whispers of lives long gone, Beni Hassan. This Middle Kingdom necropolis, carved into the cliffs of Egypt, is home to a treasure that captures the imagination like few other discoveries. The painted coffins of its ancient inhabitants. Unlike the golden tombs of pharaohs, these coffins belong to officials and nobles, people whose stories are etched in color and line, offering a quiet, vivid window into everyday life, belief, and death in Egypt, nearly 4,000 years ago. Each coffin is a masterpiece of artistry and symbolism. From the moment one sees them, the figures seem alive, frozen mid-gesture, their faces calm and attentive, their bodies depicted in the traditional Egyptian profile. Every painting is deliberate, servants bringing offerings, hunters pursuing gazelles across papyrus marshes, boats gliding along the Nile. These scenes are not mere decoration, they are maps for the afterlife, guides for the soul, and statements of identity. They reveal the values, hopes, and fears of the people who commissioned them. A glimpse into a culture that thought deeply about life after death and the preservation of memory. The coffins themselves are crafted from wood, carefully joined and coated with a fine layer of plaster. Onto this surface, artists applied vibrant pigments, reds, yellows, blues, and greens, minerals mixed into a substance that has survived millennia. Despite centuries of exposure to the desert sun and the natural decay of time, many colors remain astonishingly vivid, as though the ancient painters intended to speak across time, to communicate directly with us. There is a quiet intimacy here, a connection between the artisan, the deceased, and those who come centuries later to witness their stories. Each painted figure tells more than its immediate action. In the hieroglyphs accompanying the imagery, one can read prayers, spells, and dedications. They speak of the deceased's lineage, their accomplishments, and their relationships with gods and men alike. The artwork is not uniform. Every coffin is slightly different, reflecting the personality of the owner and the hands of the artist who created it. One can imagine the painstaking work involved, the hours spent ensuring that every line, every brushstroke, served a purpose. This care transforms the coffins from functional objects into enduring works of art, vessels for memory, as much as for the body. Walking through the tombs of Beni Hassan, one senses the layering of life and death. The painted coffins are arranged within rock-cut chambers, surrounded by offerings, stelae, and funerary objects. The walls themselves are often carved with scenes that complement the coffins: banquets, hunting expeditions, the daily activities of officials and peasants. Together, they create a tapestry of existence, the rhythms of life preserved in stone and color, now silent, yet eloquent. The imagery invites reflection, encouraging the observer to move slowly, noticing details, imagining the lives of those represented, and contemplating the human desire for remembrance. What is particularly striking about the Beni Hassan coffins is the combination of realism and symbolism. The figures are stylized, but they convey movement and emotion. Hunters appear alert, servants diligent, gods serene. The animals, too, are depicted with careful observation, showing both familiarity and reverence. Through these painted coffins, the Scythians left more than a record. They left an experience, a sense of what it felt like to live within the structures, rituals, and beliefs of ancient Egypt. Despite the beauty and preservation, the coffins also carry a quiet fragility. Many have been damaged by centuries of climate and human interaction. Some pigments have faded, portions of wood have cracked, and some coffins have been lost to history. And yet, their resilience is remarkable. Even in partial ruin, they speak with clarity, offering a bridge across millennia, an unbroken thread between past and present. The painted coffins of Beni Hassan are more than relics. They are conversations with the dead. They tell of the human need to be remembered, to assert identity, to leave traces of oneself that endure. Each brushstroke carries intention, each image a message for the living and the departed alike. They remind us that even thousands of years ago, people sought continuity, to be part of a story larger than themselves, a story that stretches across generations. In contemplating these coffins, one begins to understand the Scythians, or rather the Egyptians' vision of eternity. The coffins are guides, companions, and symbols. They were designed not only to preserve the body, but to ensure the soul's safe passage, to reflect social status and personal identity, and to speak of the culture's values in an unmistakable visual language. They are simultaneously intimate and public, personal and communal, sacred and artistic. Even today, in the hushed corridors of museums, or within the shadowed cliffs of Beni Hassan itself, the painted coffins inspire awe. They encourage patience, observation, and reflection. They reward those who take the time to study them, who allow their eyes to wander over details, tracing the lines of human activity, the contours of ancient clothing, the expressions of those long gone. Every glance becomes a meditation on the continuity of human experience, the fragility of life, and the enduring power of memory. The painted coffins of Beni Hassan remind us that history is not only written in grand monuments or towering pyramids. Sometimes, it is in the quiet, careful work of artisans, in the color preserved on wood, in the silent gestures of figures that speak across thousands of years. They carry lessons about humanity, mortality, and creativity, lessons that resonate even today. They ask the observer to slow down, to absorb, to appreciate the artistry, the devotion, and the timeless desire to leave a mark upon the world. As the sunlight fades across the desert cliffs, and the cool breeze moves over the Nile Valley, these coffins remain, silent but eloquent, guiding anyone who comes near into a contemplation of life, death, and the enduring human spirit. In their presence, it is easy to lose track of time, to be drawn into the rhythms of a culture that, though ancient, feels remarkably alive in its expression.